A show of force against migrants moving north through Central America, who he's characterized as, quote, an invasion of our country. Here's what he told Laura Ingraham earlier tonight.
When you look at that caravan and you look largely very, big percentage of men, young, strong, a lot of bad people in there, people that are in gangs. We don't want them in this country. We have a very strong border. I called up the military. This caravan is not, they're wasting their time. They are not coming
What's
into
the military going to...
Of course, the caravan is not an invasion of the United States, nothing close to it. It's not a threat to our country or our democracy. You don't need to believe me. We heard it on Fox News.
There is no invasion. No one's coming to get you. There's nothing at all to worry about. We're America. We can handle it.
One of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
There is no invasion. No one's coming to get you. There's nothing at all to worry about.
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election to try to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true.
But
they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not a big fan of
us.
yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
Okay, just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you pitting Americans? Why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No,
Peter,
I'm just asking the question.
Let me just tell you, very simple, because they're very weak on crime.
The question, to be clear, though, the question,
Thank you very much.
Why are you...
Sit down, Peter.
But the question, but you didn't answer my question. Just very simply, the question is, why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
I'm not.
Is that how you view citizens of this country?
I'll tell you what, we won a lot of elections last night. We did very well last night.
But in many ways, it's divided the country.
I think it's going to have a very positive impact. I watched NBC this morning. They didn't report it exactly correctly, but that's, that's the fact with NBC. Nothing I can do about that. But I want this country to have protection. We want security in our country. I want security.
If it's
Go ahead.
Mr. President, just wait just a moment. If it's unfair to the country and it's costing millions of dollars, why don't you just
give him the mic,
it?
please? I've answered the question. Okay. Go ahead, take the Well, I'll give you I will give you voter suppression. You just have to sit down, please. Sit down. I didn't call you. I didn't call you. I didn't call you. I'll give you voter suppression. Take a look at the CNN polls, how inaccurate they were. That's called voter suppression. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm not responding. I'm responding to. Excuse me. I'm not responding to you. I'm talking to this gentleman. Would you please sit down? Excuse me. Excuse me. Would you please sit down? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the House of Representatives
very hostile.
has fled.
It's such a hostile media. It's so sad.
Let me bring in Jim Acosta now, if I can. I believe he's at the White House. And Jim, that must have been a surreal experience. Obviously, you were being very aggressive, as is the job of a White House correspondent. David Gregory and I are sitting here talking about our experiences. Pissing off everybody in that room, pissing off President Obama, pissing off President Bush, asking questions in a way that made them mad at us. But President Trump did something that I've never seen an American president do, which is go on a personal rant against you for the questions you were attempting to ask.
Well, Jake, when they go low, we keep doing our jobs. I mean, that's the way I look at it. And, you know, I had a question to ask, and if we had played the tape a little bit before that exchange, you would have seen the question that I was asking, which was essentially about this lie that he told before the midterm elections, that this caravan of migrants moving from Central America to the U.S. border with Mexico is somehow an invasion, when it's not. They're still hundreds of miles away, and they pose nothing of a threat to the United States. But the president used that language, obviously, as we've talked about so many times, to galvanize his base. He just didn't like hearing that question. He didn't like being challenged on that point, and he certainly doesn't like being called out for his falsehoods. But of course, Jake, as you were just mentioning, that's our job. That's what we do over here. That's what Wolf did when he was over here as a White House correspondent as well. And we just can't be intimidated by that sort of thing. I was struck by the fact that the president, we thought, was going to come in there and do this victory lap. It sounded very much like a pity party. The way he was talking about lawmakers that wouldn't stand by him on the GOP side in various House races. He seems to be sort of unaware of the fact that his immigration rhetoric and his rhetoric on many levels was just turning off a lot of those suburban swing district voters. That's why people like Mike Coffman in Colorado were staying away from him. And he just doesn't understand that. I think the other point that needs to be made is that during this press conference, the president time and again seemed to be attacking journalists of color. He was attacking my friend April Ryan, telling her to sit down. At one point, he went after Yamiche Alcindor with PBS, saying that she had a racist question because she asked about this concern out there that when he says he's a nationalist, that's a dog whistle to white nationalists all over the country. It's a very fair question. As a matter of fact, I asked it in the White House Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, and he answered the question there. So I think what we saw from the president, despite the fact that they were framing this as a victory lap and he was tweeting up a storm like, you know, he was all fired up for 2020, he sounded, I thought, very depressed, very despondent, almost defeated in the way he was talking about these election results. And I think that's probably why you saw things spiral out of control. We're not used to, the president's not used to seeing himself lose. And he lost big. He lost the House of Representatives. And while there were a lot of people spinning, well, no, this is not a big loss to the president. There was a red wave in the Senate and so on. What we saw in the East Room during this White House press conference, guys, I think was just really an acknowledgement on the president's part that he does somewhat feel like he lost something yesterday, and that he understands that the job moving forward is going to get a whole lot tougher in this town, because he does have the House of Representatives now falling into the Democratic hands. But, you know, as for being called the enemy of the people and so on, Jake, Wolf, all of our folks there who are on the set there with you, I think the American people know. We're friends of the American people. We're going to defend the American people, and we're going to stand up for our rights to seek the truth in this country. And the president can call us all the names in the world, but we're just going to keep doing our jobs.
You know, let me read a statement that CNN has released following your exchange with the president at this news conference and other journalists' exchange, and what the president was saying. This is a statement from CNN. This president's ongoing attacks on the press have gone too far. They are not only dangerous, they are disturbingly un-American. While President Trump has made it clear he does not respect a free press, He has a sworn obligation to protect it. A free press is vital to democracy, and we stand behind Jim Acosta and his fellow journalists everywhere. That statement from the CNN communications department. You know, I'm not going to go back to Jim Acosta. I know he's got a lot going on over there, but that's a very strong statement from CNN.
It's a strong statement from CNN. And look, Jim's exchange with President Trump was not in a vacuum. I mean, President Trump attacked NBC. He attacked PBS. He attacked people from conservative news outlets. He attacks the press. If there's he thinks questions. I mean, if you just read the transcript of what Acosta was asking the president and what President Trump's response was, Acosta was asking about the ads and he was asking about the Mueller investigation. Those are all legitimate lines of inquiry, and that is our job, to ask these questions. Now, maybe some people don't like how one reporter asks a question or don't like how another reporter asks a question. It doesn't really matter. The point is the questions. We are supposed to bring them to the president. The president's response was to personally attack Jim Acosta. This is the President of the United States.